This question comes from Richard Gray, and it's a great question because I know there are lots of clients of mine and people in my audience who'd be interested. Now, Richard asked specifically how to scale as a solo business owner. So I'm not going to talk about things like hiring other tutors or anything like that today. Instead, I'm going to give you some ways that you can actually make some decisions, because the reason why making this decision is so tough isn't because there aren't any options, it's because there are so many. So I'm going to help you make a decision that's really right for you in the long term. Now, if you want a whole bunch of ideas with some examples, including passive income ideas, download my free ebook. The link is in the description. So let's start understanding how to make the right decision. A good place to start is by asking yourself how it is that you want to work. What is it that you want to maybe change or do differently as time goes on? So sure, you want to scale because you want to grow your business. You want to earn more money out of your business. But there are so many ways to do that. So since this is your business, I really believe you should be doing it on your terms. So it's a good idea to think about what it is you want out of your business in the long term. So you might decide that you're happy to transact your time for money, but you just want to do a bit less of it without taking a hit on your income. In fact, you might decide that you want to work less and earn more. So a really obvious answer is setting up things like group classes, but you might also create things like blended learning courses. So where you have a combination of recorded videos plus your live input. Now, this is scalable because you can reach so many more people and you don't necessarily have to have specific intakes. So people can join whenever they like. You have lots of options, actually. You can have specific intakes and cohorts, or you don't have to. It can be something that just continues to work for you in the background. A really popular format is to have video-based learning, so pre-recorded videos, with something like a weekly Q&A session or a weekly masterclass or something that really reinforces that learning or stretches that learning. Now, if you work with young people, one thing I would say is to make sure that you're integrating some accountability into your course if you go down that route. What I mean by that is make sure that your students are submitting something. It doesn't have to be something really long that you have to answer. It could even be an automated quiz. But that accountability is going to help people work through your course. Now, talking about setting up online courses and all of that, it quite honestly is a whole separate topic. So I won't go into it in too much detail. But one of the most important things is that people complete your course. For your course to be recommended to other people, for you to collect social proof like testimonials and results, you need people to complete it. And you need to find ways to get people through it so that they don't lose motivation, because that is one of the most common things that happen with online courses. People buy them, they start them, but they don't finish them. So having some checkpoints, making sure that you have accountability is a really good way of motivating people. There are lots of other strategies as well. And if you want to go down that route, then just book a discovery call with me and we can bounce some ideas around and I can see how I can help you. Alternatively, you might decide that you actually just want to scale in a way where you're earning a passive income. So having fully online courses is one way to do that. It's not the only way. You could sell resources, you could have guides that people follow, you can publish books. There are lots of ways to do that. But whatever you choose, you really need to make sure that it's aligned with what your students need. Now, I know that sounds really obvious, but sometimes when we've got our business hats on, we can sometimes neglect that aspect. So an example that I often use is, let's imagine you're working with disengaged learners and you choose to set up an online course where you've got videos. Well, someone who's disengaged isn't going to feel motivated to self-study. So you do need to make sure that it's aligned with what your students need and the position that they're in. And this leads me to my next one, which is, are you laying the foundations to be able to scale? So with that example of making sure that what you offer is aligned with what your students need, you also need to think about the decision makers. And for tutors, usually those decision makers are parents and guardians. And the reason why this is important is because often, especially if you're coming up with something new, you need to educate them on why this is something that's valuable to them. You can't just expect suddenly to be able to offer something and then it sells, or for people to trust it. If you're lucky, they will, but for more often than not, you do need to do a bit of groundwork. For instance, when group classes started springing up, Parents were convinced that no, this is just a way for tutors to make more money. They're just being greedy. One-to-one classes work better. That was the holy grail. But as time went on, as educators started educating their market on the benefits of group classes, they're now really popular. I have people on my waiting list who are actually waiting for me to set up a group class. They don't want one-to-one. So you do have to educate your market. And it's not just because maybe the thing that you're offering doesn't exist or isn't very popular at the moment, but it's because it's the first time that you might be doing it. So with me, my parents are very used to me doing live classes. Now I'm creating a course. I need to show them that a course that I specifically create will be good. And so I need to set that groundwork. I need to start doing demos, maybe webinars, maybe I need to start talking about it and building up a buzz before I launch. Another thing to set that foundation is to ask yourself whether you're willing to invest in your idea. Most ideas, to bring it to life, require an investment of money. They certainly require an investment of time, but if you're in a situation where you're looking to scale, chances are time is what you have a shortage of. And so investing money will really help you bring your idea to life and take it to market. Now, some ways that you might need to invest is on things like automation. So let's say, for instance, you do go down the online course route. You need to have a professional feel. You need to make it easy for people to buy. Not only will it increase the chances of them actually buying, but it will influence things like how much you can charge, because unless you're giving people a really professional experience, then they're not necessarily going to want to pay quite so much for it. So let's say, for example, you have got all these pre-recorded videos and they have to go on YouTube to watch them. That's very, very different to having a learning management system where they log in and they register and it shows them their progress and there are automated quizzes and things like that. It's a real value add, but it does mean spending money. Now, if you want some ideas about automating and streamlining, this will help you save time. It will help you invest in your idea. Then listen to the podcast episode that I have popped a link for down below. Now, sometimes you do have to slow down to speed up. When I was getting ready to launch the Tutors Mastermind and upgrade your education business, actually, I had to spend money and earn less. I had to take on fewer clients to make space to launch. It was really uncomfortable. You know, I was slowing down to speed up. It was very uncomfortable and very unnerving. But I stayed strong and I knew that it was an investment and that it was temporary. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because a lot of people, they're not ready for that. And that's the conundrum that they're in. I often meet people just as they're at that crossroad where they say that I want to launch this thing, but I don't have time and I don't have the budget to spend on it. Now, the truth is we often don't have the budget as such. We have to make space in our budget for it, because it's an investment. And when you make an investment, you get a lot more in return. Another thing that you might want to consider spending money on is working with a coach. Of course, you're welcome to work with me or at least book a call with me to see if we can work together, but it may not be me, it might be someone else. Either way, working with a coach will reduce that uncomfortable time, that time where you're spending more and earning less to actually launch this idea. If you do it on your own, and you can do it on your own, of course you can, it will take longer. You will make mistakes. You will have to sit there making certain decisions and you won't necessarily have someone to bounce those ideas around with. Maybe you won't be speaking to someone who's already done it and you can avoid mistakes because they've already made them for you. So they're the things that I would really think about investing in. I made the mistake in the past of not investing in these things and it took me absolutely ages to launch. And when I launched, it wasn't right and I had to make changes on the fly. It was quite stressful. Whereas the minute I invested, it made it so much easier. And the third thing is to ask yourself, how well do you know your market? Now, you might know your clients. That's very different from understanding your market, because your market is people who may never be your clients, who are other people's clients, or people who might be your client in the future. It's understanding the space that you're operating in. Now, the reason why this is useful is because it will give you clarity on how you need to approach this new idea to scale that you might have. So let's say, for instance, you're launching something that lots of other people have launched. Unless you know your market, you're not going to know that other people are doing this. Now, if other people are doing this, then that's a signal to you that there is a demand for it. So it gives you a bit of safety and security in the idea. Or it could be that you're launching something that no one else is doing yet. It's something really innovative. Now, this circles back to that principle of educating your market. You definitely need to prepare your audience for this new idea. But also you need to understand what it is that people want, what are their perceptions, what are their possible objections, so that you can use all of these to frame your idea, to enhance your idea, and to market your idea. There's really no right or wrong. I'm not saying that you should create something that other people are already doing, or whether you should create something new. The point is, regardless of which situation you're in, you are going to need to plan your launch. You're going to need to use it to plan your service. So if, say, for instance, I didn't know when I was setting up my group classes, let's say I didn't know that people would be concerned about what to do if they missed a lesson, I wouldn't have been able to respond to that by recording my sessions. Now, you can, of course, go on social media and set up your audience and interact with them. And actually, it's a really good idea. I have learned loads from my audience and they have helped me actually develop my business. I have launched recently the training jukebox with grabbable resources because people have actually asked me for them. So instead of trying to imagine what your audience want, instead of doing the traditional target audience exercise where you create an avatar, speak to people, listen to people, keep your ear to the ground, join Facebook groups and communities where people are discussing, and just listen and observe and make notes and think about how you can really target those pain points with your idea. Because wanting to scale your business is one thing, but it will only actually scale if your idea is something that really connects with your audience. So I hope I've given you some ideas. If you want to bounce any ideas around, then do get in touch with me. The link to book a discovery call is below. And don't forget to listen to that podcast episode to help you automate and streamline.